This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Yeah, disability is kind of an international identity. There's been international exchange on disability for many, many decades, some of it going back.
Entrepreneurship is hustle culture for the first 3 years or whatever, but if that's the case, then brokenness of the entire world, right?
Because disability is very associated then with, like, say, a national organization.
Swagability Show is a show where we desire to make sure that everyone can thrive wherever life finds them. I would lose a family. I would lose a marriage. From Bangladesh to Brazil, Switzerland to Sweden, Egypt to Estonia and beyond, today is a privilege to have my friend Peter Torres-Fremlin, founder and editor of Disability Debrief, a newsletter featuring voices from over 160 countries. Peter, thank you for taking time out of your day to hang out with us a little bit on the Swagability Show.
It's such a pleasure to meet you, Stephen. Really happy to be here.
Great. I always like to get backstories on anything before we jump into too many questions. So if you'll allow me to, before you got into the global picture of reporting on things, what did your journey look like into journalism? And even if you allow me to take it one step further, your physical ability or different ability, as we like to say, and how you were able to use that platform and how it all came together to become this beautiful publication that we get every month.
No, thank you, Stephen. It's always good to take things back. So you can maybe tell from my accent, I'm British. I'm in Colchester in England, where I was born and grew up. I grew up with a physical disability, but I wasn't connected to disability community, and I didn't really it wasn't really an identity. It was like, I would say, like, oh, I'm disabled, can you help me, like, get onto this bus or something like that. So I'd say it like that. But then as gradually as I was a student, I started thinking about disability and seeing how it related to things. And like, the other thing, I guess, about me is that my parents loved travel. And so from an early age I was traveling, and that love is something that stayed with me. So it was actually while I was in Bangladesh learning Bengali that I got recruited by, like, a group of disabled people that had come together in terms of disability. They saw me and then they invited me to come and join, and I was learning Bengali, so really keen to meet people, and that's where I connected with them. That then led to, like, ultimately I then spent a few years working in Bangladesh in international cooperation. So I was working with different UN agencies and charities and trying to get them to include disabled people in their work. So that was actually my background. I did a master's in social anthropology, and then it was through like programs trying to help disabled people in poorer countries, that's where my career started. And I spent about 10 years working on that. I was based in some of the countries you mentioned, some of those countries definitely I've never been to. But I was based in Bangladesh and then briefly in Switzerland and then in Egypt. Language learning was also this big theme for me. And out of that kind of professional network and these efforts, it was really marvelous to be both part of and to witness efforts all over the world to change disability policy, to make sure disabled people were included in government programs, were included in the ways that countries were growing and getting rich, or trying to do so. It's out of that I started Disability Debrief 5 years ago, and it was principally for colleagues in working in those areas, whether it's UN agencies or governments or international charities. And I was like, let's just sort of share resources about what's going on, because there's so much happening. And I'm happy to talk like that. That's kind of the backstory to how I started. It then evolved to what it is today. But then how I became a journalist is by accident, by doing journalism. So didn't have a journalistic background before I started writing, and I kind of wrote my way into it. And I was a bit preoccupied when people mentioned that I was a journalist. I didn't quite know whether that was a good or a bad thing, but now I kind of take the label with some pride, and that's something that's extended by doing.
Absolutely. And I think just listening to that, I think we in the West have such a narrow mind compared to what like disabilities and what they look like, how we should be cared for, treated. And when I think of you talking about Bangladesh, not being able to apply my Western mindset to the fact that Bengalis got together with you and encouraged you or brought you along because they saw a need, they saw an opportunity, and they encouraged you. And it was really there was your launching point for this eventually disability debrief. I find that fascinating.
Yeah, disability is kind of an
Yeah.
international identity. There's been international exchange on disability for many, many decades, some of it going back hundreds of years. It's been a way to connect with people. I mean, this was in like 1981, there was the UN Year of Disabled People, that brought a lot of people together. But since before then, there's been a lot of exchange. This Bangladeshi group that I met, they were helped to form by then a British charity. So it's kind of it's all connected. I think often you're right. We think because disability is very associated then with like say a national organization or a kind of service or kind of whatever law it is in our country that is running things. But this it's very much, I think, an international community. We really learn from each other. We inspire each other. We're aware of disabled people in different countries. And yeah, it's been such a pleasure, Stephen. I'll tell you one thing. It gives me a real confidence because I know wherever I go in the world, whatever country I go in the world, I will know someone that's connected someone to disability work there.
That's which is amazing in itself, because to have that network is such a rich resource, and to be able to connect those, you've got such a humble spirit about yourself, but so much in terms of connecting as a connector to people to enable them to meet and then go off and do something else.
But I guess I mention it also because sometimes like our disabled experiences can be very isolating, right? Like our disabled experiences can mean we don't get to the social event, we don't get to like work and meet people through that or whatever. But then at the same time, it can be a way to connect with people. And there's like, I guess I'm kind of inviting, like it's kind of an amazing like thing that gives us something in common with someone in an entirely different context. It's kind of both very provoking and difficult when I met sort of my new friends in Bangladesh. Some of them had like less severe physical disabilities than me, but they had more severe like social disabilities, like that they hadn't been able to continue schooling, or they'd been bullied, or like had problems, like the family kind of isolated and hid them. And I was like, am I even like disabled? Like in comparison. So you meet like some things you've got in common and some things like totally different. But yeah, I mean, this, when you meet like this thing about connecting with disabled people and about discovering you've got something in common with someone that you know nothing about, I find it really, really sort of thrilling way to get to know the world.
It is. It would be very rich and very rewarding. Some people don't understand or don't remember a black and white switch to when something became, their life calling or whatever. It kind of just happened. Was there a moment on this journey, whether travel or learning languages, where you realized that you wanted to and wanted to dedicate your career to this disability advocacy?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because sometimes it's like assumed that just because we're disabled people, of course,
Yes.
of course we're going to be into this. But there was, I don't know, after I did my master's program, I knew I kind of wanted to go back to the disability, sort of to work on disability in Bangladesh.
May I ask where you did your education? I don't
So
like to tell.
I did my undergraduate in the UK, and then I did my master's program in Brazil. So I studied social anthropology in Rio de Janeiro, and that was after I met my friends in Bangladesh, and I sort of did some research with disabled people in Brazil, which was also very meaningful in sense of the connections that I had with people.
Yes.
And yeah, like I have a type of muscular dystrophy. I met there then people with different types of muscular dystrophy, so it was really like very intense sharing. And they were like, "Oh, you're going to be using like an electric wheelchair later in your life." And I'm like, "No, I'm not. What are you talking about?" And then like, "No, for sure you will. Why don't you try mine?" And I did. And then like, sure enough, like whatever years later, I'm now using like an electric wheelchair full time. Sorry, I lost yeah. Yeah, see, so this, I don't know, it sounds very fated, and especially when I go back into all this stuff, it really is something so meaningful in my life. But actually, through my career, I was kind of always wondering, oh, should I carry on down this line, or should I say, like, work on a kind of neighboring job in the kind of organizations that I'm working in, right? Because there weren't like full-time jobs available for people working on disability inclusion. It's like a full-time job for a communications person. Like, do I want to be that person? Maybe. Should I apply? Maybe. Why not? Right? Do you see what I mean? So it's kind of also a little bit by luck, I think, for me. Like it just like each time it landed again on disability, but it could have if a different offer had come along or a different opportunity had opened up, I might have left the sector or come back to the sector. I think now I do disability debrief. I've got a work that I find very fulfilling and has shown a way that I can really contribute. So that is now like a much clearer direction for me, for at least for the next few years. But even say, yeah, like even 4 or 5 years ago, I remember one of the first interviews I did on the debrief, speaking with Catalina Devandas, who had been special rapporteur at the United Nations.
Wow.
And I remember speaking with her, and she was kind of surprised that I wasn't like locking in on disability. I'd said like the conversation with her reminded me why there's so much to do on disability, why it's so important, and why it's so fascinating. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the question was open, and it's not open at the moment, but maybe it will be like in a few years. Who knows?
Are there cultural, like with all the countries you've been to, are there cultural differences you've observed that have kind of surprised you in terms of disability awareness and inclusion in those countries?
Yeah, so one of the kind of biggest like the biggest factors around how do we like interact with each other, and actually that I wouldn't have been able to live in those countries if there hadn't been a type of assistance that isn't present in the UK. So give you an example. I used to walk around with difficulty and then fall over, right? When that happened in Britain, I could get people to help me, but they were kind of really nervous about it, and you had to like look at them and ask for assistance, right? When say like I fell over in Brazil, like people would run from the other side of the street to help me up, right? Brazilians are really shocked when they come to Europe and then see someone in the streets of London or Paris, like in
Right.
distress and no one helping them, and they're like, what kind of
They very are
country?
passionate people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what kind of country is this?
Right.
When I went to Bangladesh, I saw those steps everywhere, and I was like, well, I know I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, I can't manage this country at all. And then
Mm.
I saw, I like, there's also lots of people willing to help. I was like, oh, so this is fine. So that's a real difference. I think that then there's lots of sort of different cultural expectations of people, what roles they have, and then sort of disability, like where disability fits into that, what's sort of what people try and include, what people else. I think it within countries it differs quite a bit as well. In some like kind of and it's just some like sort of lower middle class area you're gonna have a can-do mentality because you have to.
Yeah.
But then say a richer family might like be like, oh well, we can like isolate and hide this disabled person and look after them. So there's quite a lot of diversity. There's also like some quite horrible sort of superstitions and
I would
stigma
imagine.
in different places, and some of that is incredibly painful to see. That's very associated with kind of cultural stuff, and sometimes we associate some cultures are a bit sort of backward about some things, but we've got plenty of like stigma and violence in the West. So
Sure. Do you write about those things that are politically incorrect, not proper, that you've observed?
yeah, so I think I don't know. It's one of the painful things actually of disability reporting is just like the level of violence and level of harassment and things you see. Like just off the top of my head, when you mention that, I think of someone like something I saw, a little person in Australia saying that like, oh, now little people are being filmed for social media, right? This is just this like new form of harassment. Like this like our technology and internet is went to make us more open-minded and tolerant, not like find a new venue for making jokes and bullying people. I think of the kind of the cases of like people with albinism in Africa, and that's everything from like name calling and harassment to abuse, violence, and murder for ritualistic purposes. Actually, it gets pretty dark.
Yeah.
Stephen, one thing, and then one thing like there are some things like say like I'm a wheelchair user. If someone is like, look, I've made a shop with a bunch of steps, like deal with it. Like at least there might be a reason for steps, right? But like the verbal abuse of someone as they walk down the streets, like
Yeah.
this just really need. I don't like this is a bit of a silly term, but it's needless discrimination. How does that benefit any like? It really hurts me when this discrimination is just like
It
so
shows
like
you
so
the
harmful, right?
brokenness of the entire world, right? It
Yeah,
shows the breakdown in mankind. It's sad.
yeah.
You have to,
There's that crack within us, I think.
for sure. And there must be things you can't report on because how horrific it would be. Like with your experiences. That brings me kind of to my next thought process and question is how do you decide when you've got 150 or 60 countries and the people groups and you've met, I mean, your report doesn't come out as an encyclopedia volume every month. How do you decide which stories from which countries to highlight and to do a debrief on for the publication?
Yeah, no, thank you for asking. I think some of it is kind of like following my own interests and
Sure.
sort of just what stimulates me or caught my eyes. I kind of really like some sort of disability advocacy news is sort of quite repetitive, like, oh, this law isn't good enough, or like the benefits aren't enough. Obviously all of that is important. I really like sort of say like covering disability protests, because that sort of shows like where disabled people are making a claim for a better thing. One of a few things on the debrief that I try to do, I I try to really bring a range of countries. So I think like in general online we hear a lot from say like US and UK and Canada and Australia, disability news, but we hear less from other countries. In particular, we hear less from countries in the global south. So where I can, I really try to bring out that news. I think another contribution I try and make on the debrief is like to show people as it is, not as it should be, right? If that makes sense. Sometimes with disability politics, we get a bit locked into like we have to talk about it this way.
Yeah.
This is the only good approach, and I kind of try and open that up. Um, this kind of combines. I kind of call it this disability lens of like the world looks different when you look at it through the disability angle, through like the experiences of disabled people and bringing out those lived experiences. Another another element of then the publication now, which I'm really proud of, is the like extensive range of collaborations that I have. Just today I'm editing a piece from Argentina about how disability rights are under attack there. Like this week I published from someone writing about their experiences in rehab in the US for-profit system. I've got essays coming up from Hungary, from Nigeria, and there it's partly the range, but then partly like these kind of like the network connections that you mentioned, like this like amazing like worldwide network of people working to change the world, working in the most interesting places against the odds, and like bring out their experiences and seeing who I can work with. Some of that's like quite opportunistic because you kind of you kind of go forward with who you've met.
Right.
Obviously under certain criteria. So there's a bit of judgment to it. There's a bit of randomness to it. I think related to a previous question about the heaviness of the news, that has been a factor. I didn't realize doing a disability newsletter would be so heavy, but it has been very heavy. Like all the wars going on around the world, disabled people are caught in those. How much you look at that. I'm aware I've got a lot of bad news, and I think especially the state of the world at the moment. I also try and like have not just bad news and show like cultural things and like a nice music video or like some like cool sport that you didn't know about. Like so but that's a kind of evolving
Mhm.
evolving thing as well, because I want to do justice to the scenarios, but I'm aware that both myself and readers, it's very heavy.
Yeah. It is very well rounded. You do a great job, I believe, at balance, and bringing news out, but not leaving the last page and going and hiding in a corner because the world's in such a mess. it's a it, it's a great read, and yeah, I guess thinking along those lines too, and kind of moving on, um, with yeah, with you visiting so many different cultures and groups and seeing the disability community, is there, I mean, we in the West have our lens, right? But is there a common um, challenge that you see a thread throughout, no matter what country you're in or what people group you're speaking with in terms of disability? Is there a commonality of um, something that disability community faces that's common to many places? Is it bullying? Is it something that you would say I would expect to see here because I visited, and of course you see it in other countries too?
But I
Or no?
think, let's just say there are some things like sort of the
Mhm.
accessibility or discrimination, are these challenges that are everywhere. But the kind of, I guess, the other way of putting that is that um, we're just sort of trying to be recognized fairly as individuals and like make our make our lives and to like sort of tackle the barriers that that come up. And I mean, it's the thing in common is that for so many reasons, so many disabled people have not been recognized as full individuals, have not been given places in their society. If they have been, then they don't really need necessarily to like connect with other people in the disability community. So it is, I mean, it's that striving. It's quite maybe a bit simplistic, but that's striving to like have a voice, to take one's life forward, to develop, to grow, to love, to work, to learn, and be part of the world as other people are.
Same sort of along those lines. What about initiative solutions or, um, yeah, that give you hope that you have come across from different countries or individuals or groups with disabilities that you've seen and want to recognize and applaud? Do any come to mind?
Yeah, I think kind of the theme of kind of what I'm saying is this aspect of what happens when disabled people come together, right? I think that, say, in like the US, UK, and Canada, we have rights for disabled people precisely because this happened. But I think like now, when I say grew up as a disabled person, I didn't like seek out connection with other disabled people and didn't think I needed it, and I wasn't aware of like how my rights had been achieved by people protesting. So it is, I don't know, really like for me, it comes down to that being the most important, that being most important thing, like connecting with each other, mobilizing. Sometimes that turns into protesting, sometimes that turns into like a self-help organization, sometimes that turns into a type of advocacy, sometimes it just sort of I don't know, when like this week I went out for a drink with some disabled friends, and someone was telling me like how they get into the local swimming pool. And I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. I should go swimming as well, right? Like that kind of, we need our peers, and we need to come together. Out of that, then you get quite interesting initiatives, or someone comes up with a good idea for something that should be in some policy or some like local local plan, or like something the town needs, or whatever it is. But yeah, I don't know, I'm a big believer in coming together.
Sure. Is there any regions or communities or countries where you've been that have surprised you, that are making the most progress in terms of disability inclusion? And if there are any that come to mind, what would they be doing, or why would you say that either surprised you or you recognized them and saw good on you for the limited resources or the lack of ability to get together? Are any of those things come to mind? There may not be any. It crossed my mind when you're talking.
That's really interesting. So some of the things I remember remember a visit some years ago to Bangalore in India, which is like the tech hub in India, and there were then lots of initiatives to get disabled people into workplaces. I found that really interesting. I've worked for some years then with sort of these initiatives around national business and disability networks. Those were sort of really kind of like exciting ways of working with companies to then take a more positive view on disability. I think I don't know. I sort of see like powerful things happening in every region. When I mentioned people with albinism, then there's been a really sort of growing movement that I've been sort of honoured to learn about, actually, by writing on the debrief and then being educated about it by people. That's really changing the way governments respond to people with albinism, self-advocacy movements of people with intellectual disabilities are just very powerful, very powerful as well. Yeah, I do. There's lots of, and
I'm sure there must be.
it's hard to pick one. I think this is one of the really wonderful things about the disability space for me, that people are making their lives in so many ways. One thing I saw recently was like an adaptive skate park for blind people. And I'm like, well, I didn't expect that.
That's what I was thinking of, like stories that you just go, didn't expect to see that over here or whatever. There must be many. That's hard. That's a loaded question, but with your amount of travel and your experiences, to try and pull answers to that question, I can understand why that's difficult. But yeah, thank you. Before we move on, maybe we'll look at that question, but in a different light. Have you noticed a reoccurring barrier or barriers that tend to hold back communities that is more of a global problem, not just in these countries or this country? From the West on, is it isolation? Is it, or what? What is something you see pretty much on a common basis that would say, well, we struggle with that issue as well?
Yeah, I mean, this kind of this process of changing attitudes and like being taken seriously, like it comes out in different places at different times. In some cases, you just get outright hostility. I
Right.
think now where like I think the new politics in the West is maybe a bit different, but where we'd achieved before this new politics in the West is people will be nice to us to our faces, but then keep on doing like the same old nonsense
Sure.
behind our backs. So it's still a matter of changing attitudes, but from a different
Right.
position. So like that's, and whether which one is harder or easier, I don't know. I think like I guess this kind of these new trends around the world of the sort of nationalist turn, that each country focusing on its own issues, the rejection of some of the like socially progressive issues. I think this is a real challenge coming down the line for disability work, because we have been like really depended on like international networks to support the work. We've depended on government fundings like to support different advocacy initiatives and programs, and we've depended on this like kind of, when we get support, we can kind of get support across the political spectrum, or we used to be able to. Now that's becoming very divided, and I don't quite know what. I think that's a real challenge coming down the line as our societies remake themselves.
Let's move on maybe to some advice you can give, or some actionable steps anyway, for those who are listening today, or those who will watch this or read the debrief. Some ways that people who are listening who want to make an impact, what actionable steps kind of would you suggest that they take to support disability inclusion here at home or wherever they're listening, both locally and globally on the global stage? What have you observed, and what would you suggest for those?
Yeah, I think so. In most places, like there are probably like disabled groups trying to do things, and then normally they feel sort of quite isolated and under supported. So, like I think wherever you live, there are going to be either locally or nationally, like a disabled initiative trying to push towards something. Sometimes you can join them, sometimes you can support things. I remember one of the interviews I did. Someone asked, like I asked a similar question about, well, what do you do? And he's like this is, I mean, you just start very very concretely, like maybe the sort of the local library isn't accessible, or doesn't have braille books or something like that, and you can ask people around that. One of my most concrete advocacy successes, Stephen, is at a Thai restaurant, like 500 meters from my house. They had a little step. So I said, like, guys, you need a ramp. And they're like, why do we need a ramp? Like, disabled people have been in here, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, sure, like if someone like lifts your manual wheelchair up the step, but it's not for everyone. They got a ramp. It was really steep. It was really dangerous. And like I argued with them, and now they've got like a really nice ramp. And so like you can access it using a wheelchair. And I felt, okay, there was a bit of like back and forth about it. The restaurant owner was like, it kind of came across to me as a little bit like disrespectful. He wasn't interested, but actually just he didn't understand what the issue was. And
Right.
needed someone. And when he did understand, he could solve it. So I don't know, that's
So back,
perhaps my own most concrete and definitely my tastiest
sure.
um advocacy victory.
Right.
So I think we've all got things around us and the ways we can kind of contribute, like in whichever way, the time or money or attention, or just sort of saying something to someone.
Yeah. Great answer. Um, let's talk about the disability debrief itself. Some of the practical things. How long? When do you start working on the disability debrief? And is it a labor of one individual, or do you have others that are helping you to put it together and get it out? Yeah, what does it look like for Peter Torres-Fremlin to get the disability debrief put together and chipped off with such great quality?
Thank you. It's something I started. It's a bit over 5 years ago. Started as a side project, and then it grew and grew. For a couple of years, it's been my full time work.
Uh,
Obviously, part of that is then the financing that allows us to focus on disability journalism, and I've been really honored. I have a model where I make everything available for free, and then it's supported on a pay what you can basis. And through individuals and grant support, I can work on it full time, and that's also allowed me to bring in other people with me. So I have some sort of like longer term editorial support currently from Celestine Fraser here in the UK. Previously, Anya Kelly Costello really helped me shape and develop things there in New Zealand. I work with brilliant illustrators. This is the illustration I'm really weak on myself. I don't have that talent. So already count on Kananti Andini. She's in Indonesia, and Sonaksha there in India, they've really added a visual dimension to the debrief. So I'm kind of working with all of those on a regular basis then, like as per like different topics and different themes. I work with contributors around the world. I work very intensely to like, I'm very active as an editor. I do also like sort of mentoring and guidance to people that haven't necessarily done this type of writing before. So that's a lot of my time as well. And then the other things is then like I try and sort of deal with the range of disability news that I'm getting and seeing, and there are some like every month I sort of lose myself in different links and in different processes. And also this activity of being in touch with the different community and the different readers and people it puts me in touch with. Stephen, like yourself, I mean, this sort of like our connection is this example of like, oh, we didn't know each other, we live in very different places, but then we like connected and we saw we've got a bunch of like things in common. I think this is one of my favorite things of doing the publication, people that it like puts you in touch with.
Well, we certainly hope Swagability becomes part of your friends list who you can call on at any time for that.
Real pleasure to be here. And yeah, I admire also the Swagalicious name, the Swagalicious name as well. So that's this is kind of then day to day is balancing all of these things, and like, I mean, like anyone else, falling behind on my email.
What does a typical day look like for Peter? And are you the chief editor of the debrief on your own? And if whether it's yes or no to the answer, what does a day look like for a yeah publication?
I'm at the center, so I'm the only one that's working on it full time, but it's really, I mean, it's made by all these different types of support, whether someone's sending a link or helping to write an article or helping to finance it or helping to share it, or just sort of spending this time reading and thinking about it. A typical day, I work from home. I sort of like order the tasks I'd like to do for the day. That's a bit of a kind of my first creative writing, because that normally doesn't happen in the way that you think. If I'm on a newsletter deadline, then I'm like, forget everything else. We are just editing today, right? We're just reading or writing or whatever it is. If when I'm not on a deadline, then it's like trying to balance this mix. I always I nearly always have a call in a day. I try not to have too many calls because that then takes me away from like being able to crack on with things. And then I get to the end of the day and I didn't do half of the list that I meant to, so I push those plans to the other day, like dash out some emails, and then like before the inbox climbs out and grabs me, I close it down and I try and have a hard log off at the end of the day to really sort of just like get out of it. And I try and have hard off on the weekends as well.
Yeah, stuff that I'm learning is so important when starting. And well, you're 5 years, 4 years ahead of where I am, and things that I'm learning as you're talking about. I'm going in my head, yes, I've been told about this, and maybe I do need to do it, as I hear it from more individuals like yourself that have been successful. But probably hard offs on any time of the week, but hard offs for 5 o'clock for family time in the evening, weekends. It's I was under the impression that entrepreneurship is hustle culture for the first 3 years or whatever. But if that's the case, then I would lose a family, I would lose a marriage, and those are, you know, those things are things that I'm not going to die on that hill. Marriage is important.
It's been interesting. I had a good practice from a previous work life where I was a freelancer, and I kind of really was quite rigorous about the on and off. That slipped in this project because I like doing this project a lot more. And so some of it, like, I've kind of updated those rules. I think, like you say, some of the entrepreneurialism also, like, partly the reason you're doing is to make a push on it. But early in my career, someone said to me, look, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
That's good.
And I think that there's always going to be more work. I think we're also, depending what you're trying to make, because some people really make, really impressive things by completely sacrificing themselves in different components of their life. I'm trying to make a work project that's part of a life that's balanced, and so has other things in it. It's also kind of it evolves. I think, like, I kind of came, the debrief coincides with me coming back to the UK after the pandemic, my disability sort of getting more compounded. I then wasn't able to travel how I used to, and I was a bit sort of sad about those things, and maybe I kind of displaced it a little bit into, like, working hard.
That's exactly what, yeah.
So there's that. And is that a good or a bad thing? I don't know. I also just, for me, what I notice when I kind of really push it during the week, then it comes out on the weekend that I'm tired, and my mental health gets very gets very fuzzy. So I really feel it. So we each find our own, like, balance on that, and I'm a believer in different phases of life as well. Like, some phases you're really pushing at one thing.
I appreciate your openness, and likewise challenging me on those issues, because I find productivity enjoyable, but any strength taken too far becomes a weakness, as we all know. And that's probably my downfall with Swagability, is pushing too hard, looking for success, and at the sacrifice of my health, my amount of energy at the end of the week to give to family, or even the evenings of family time. So it's like everything, it's weighing the values of what's important to us, and it's keeping that pendulum in the middle, I think, without having it swing too far to either side. And I recognize our time has slipped. I had just a couple more, if you've got.
Yeah, please.
To your travel, like, is, I drool over it, but maybe because you've been through it, not so much. I would love to travel to see the world that you have seen and have the privilege to. But because we do talk about travel quite a bit on the channel, just to help people to be able to do it more confidently, and we challenge them to get out of the isolating situations, because it is more available to travel. But what does travel look like for you? And are there particular challenges that, I don't want to say surprise, but you've encountered while reporting or researching in stories in some of those countries that we would think are, would be a nightmare to get to?
Yeah, isn't it? So I think a lot of my travel was done when I was a certain level of disability, that I kind of walked slowly and had difficulty with stairs. And then I went to places that had a lot of accessibility barriers. Partly, one of my motivations was also, like, like the challenge of it. I am someone that I'm really a people person. I'm traveling to I really enjoyed learning languages and connecting with people, and that you can do, like, that you can do in many ways, in many places. I didn't necessarily go for the standard tourism. Partly that was an interest thing, but then partly, like, like then inaccessibility really shows itself, right? Because if you're trying to get to a specific place, right,
Get that.
whereas if your goal is like meeting people and going to a cafe, like there's lots of different cafes you can end up at, right? And so you can kind of find the more accessible ones. I think I then got into kind of like getting familiar with the place and going back. I think it was obviously quite intimidating coming from that situation in the UK, but I don't know, sometimes you find like in travel some of these barriers can be easier to get over than at home because you can do things your own way. If that makes sense. Now I use like since my kind of disability progressed, I then accelerated to like I need a big electric wheelchair and I can't sort of in a it used to be if the hotel room was kind of accessible I could manage.
Yeah.
Now I kind of need assistance, so now I need to go with like with someone that can assist. That's really changed the extent to which I travel, so that's it's much less. But in the past year or two, first like doing little things in the UK to like build my confidence up.
Yes.
And there's a real emotional sensitivity to it as well. I really needed to kind of lean on good friends that could support that because I wasn't able to like articulate. I find this scary. I find this like overwhelming thinking about these access needs that I now have because my body has changed. So
Yes.
there, like doing it with good friends really helped me make that step. Earlier this year, I was able to get the first flight with the electric wheelchair.
Good for you.
Then there's lots of people that have done that before, and you can have written about it online and what works and what
Yep.
can go wrong. And I mean, you just sort of cross your fingers,
Yeah.
a little bit as well. But I mean, there's a real like travel can be
Sure.
thrilling. And yeah, the connecting with new places and the new mindset it puts you in, and new people it can connect you with. But yeah, I understand the trepidation and there, like I say, when I kind of my disability sort of accelerated, I kind of really just on a very gradual basis tried to build my
Good for you.
confidence back up.
Look, before we let you go, and we appreciate again your time so much. We've talked about your work, where your travel, and all that. Do you mind if I spend just a couple minutes trying to let our listenership know a little bit more about who Peter is? If you've got a few minutes, um, when you're traveling for work, do you have any favorite sports teams or hidden gems you've discovered along the way that you like to do or a visit or anything like that?
That's really interesting. I think kind of what I really like when I kind of go to a new place, like how you um like can kind of throw yourself into that. Like now, like so much is available online, so you can like get a playlist from like Spotify of music from that country. You can kind of listen to some podcasts about about what's going on, and you can kind of like throw yourself into like what their country is, whether that's for
Culture.
to like 2 days
Yeah.
or a couple of weeks. But I don't know,
Interesting.
it's travel these days, especially with the internet. You can travel,
Mhm.
but then like stay in your virtual world, listening and watching the same news that you're watching. I read like this way to get out of it. You need to be kind of quite pushed. And I found real pleasure, like the tunes or the different things that you find along the way, the social issues that you see are similar or different. That's kind of one of the things that sort of comes comes to mind. And like for me, language learning, I'd watch a lot of soap operas, and recently I was trying to learn Dutch, and like watching reality TV in Dutch. I don't know, it's real, yeah.
Yeah, but that's entertaining. Yeah, adventures to you for sure. Do you have any routines or rituals that help you stay focused while you're producing so many stories?
Yeah, I do physiotherapy like every day, and I used to kind of bit resent that as an imposition, but I now sort of see it like that is a routine. It starts the day, it ends the day. That is sometimes when I'm watching like this reality TV and like language I'm learning, or like just English. Um, I Journaling has really helped me. Like that's I did different phases. I do that more or less, but that really helps. Sort of like from a writer's point of view, helps get rid of writer's block, but also just helps me psychologically. In the past 2 years, developed an addiction to online chess.
Mm.
Um, so that I mean, it's like yeah, really keeps you focused on the game, and takes your mind out of whatever it was thinking about.
Very smart. You've been to a lot of countries, but if you could teleport to any country tomorrow to cover a story, where would you head?
Like if I wanted to have like if I just needed like a kiss for my soul, I would for sure go to like Brazil, because they're like you're by the beach, everyone knows how to have a good time,
Mm,
and it's just sort of like it's a beautiful place. If I wanted to like go to where my kind of heart calls out to, like I'd go back to Bangladesh. It's a place that really got into me and is really different. And like in a different life, I would have
mm,
stayed living there, because it really, yeah, I fell in love with it. I didn't know how to stay together with
yeah,
it. um, but those would be my two teleportations.
a couple more and we'll let you go. Is there a country that you have, or a region you have yet to visit that people say they have a bucket list, but um, that you, uh, if the opportunity presented itself, you would go in a second?
Yeah, that I don't quite know with my new mobility situation, but the like bucket list countries, I always wanted to go to Mozambique. I speak Portuguese.
Okay.
I just always sort of like fascinated me. I'd love to go to Colombia in South America as well. As like whenever I've met Colombians outside of the country, they've been really sort of like brilliant and fascinating people. So yeah, those were a couple on my bucket list. I think Mozambique, I had tickets, like I had a work assignment lined up, and then COVID came along. So
Oh,
like it was within reach, but then it got kicked off the bucket list, or kicked
yeah,
like punted onto the bucket list. I mean,
gotcha. Last question. Outside of your work with Disability Debrief, what are some things that you love doing to unwind or to recharge, to get back at your work, and at getting back at things?
yes, I mentioned the
Yeah.
online chess addiction. I love meeting with people. Here in Colchester, I'm actually really happy to be part of the board of a local theatre, so I really enjoy
Wow.
seeing live theatre. I spent on my travels, I just sort of neglected that interest of mine, so it's been really nice to come back and kind of, yeah, like see the performance. Um, yeah, I like just sort of going out and about and chatting with the characters along the way. I'm like mainly about chatting with people. um,
Tell people where they can get a hold of the Disability Debrief, the different aspects of what you do, and where they can find it and how they can get
yeah,
it.
thank you. Disability Debrief is on disabilitydebrief.org. The best way to follow it is signing up to the weekly the weekly newsletter. It's a reader supported publication if you're able to contribute. But I think like just any reading and sharing really helps, because this is Disability News interested to our community. So if we can spread it, that really helps. I'm on LinkedIn quite a bit as Peter Torres-Fremlin. I'm on Blue Sky as Disability. Those are my main online places. But yeah, the best one is if you can sign up to the newsletter. I'll give you the sign up link, Stephen, so people can follow along.
They will certainly be provided in the show notes. Peter, it's been incredible hearing for you, for us, having on the show, the insights, the stories, things that are happening around the world. You've been gracious with your time. I'm hoping this is just the first one, and there'll be a 2.0 down the road. We can talk about that at a later date. But thank you for taking time on the Swagability Show. Swagability Show is a show where we desire to make sure that everyone can thrive wherever life finds them. You can subscribe to our channel here and also visit our website, swagability.com, where you can find out the latest news and sign up for our newsletter. The greatest honor you could do, my wife and I, would be to leave a like and share this with someone who you think it may encourage. And until next time, friends, stay safe, stay healthy, and remember to thrive wherever life finds you. Swags.